Welcome to episode number 327 of the Marine Layer podcast. We'll discuss whether or not the Mariners should be aggressive on the trade market now that they have Josh Naylor and go after Arizona Diamondbacks second baseman Ketel Marte. Naylor was introduced via press conference earlier today on Tuesday. We'll talk about some of the comments from there as well and anything we took away.
Reminder to you guys, just make sure you're staying on top of all of our stuff. If you want to do that, there's a couple different ways. You can always go over to our website, marinelayerpod.com, where everything is there. Our episodes are there. Merch is there, which TJ's wearing right now. Go get your merch over at our website. Patreon's over there. That's marinelayerpod.com. If you want to listen to these episodes, and you are listening, go make sure to download and please rate and review these episodes 5 stars. It helps a bunch. Similar idea on YouTube, but if you're on YouTube, just hit that subscribe button, leave a like on the video, drop a comment. Hitting subscribe is the best way to support the channel, so make sure to do all that. And then find us across social media at Marine Layer Pod.
Let's get it rolling.
The pitch from Acevedo. A drive deep to right field. Down the line. The Mariners win this game 2-1. The dream lives. They're going to the playoffs. One from Jansen. There you go. Left field. We got a tie ball game. Julio. Oh, baby, what a moment. Tie ball game at 7-7.
And we welcome you to this episode of the Marine Layer podcast, part of the Just Baseball Podcast Network. Recording here on Tuesday evening, November 18th. Would you want to take a guess what my favorite quote from Josh Naylor's press conference today was?
Is it from Josh Naylor or is it from the Mariners front office?
It is from Josh Naylor.
Oh, you're probably going to say it's about Tucker.
That Tucker, the Mariners' dog, was a big reason Josh Naylor decided to come home. How about that? Tucker doing some work.
Well, it's a great marketing tool.
Can I make a comp? Tucker and Josh Naylor have remarkably similar personalities. There's going to be a big swath of our audience who can't do this comparison because they don't get to see Tucker up close and personal. They just can really see him from the stands. And it's the same thing with Josh Naylor for the most part. I will tell you, Lyle and I, as two members of the media who get to go down and see these things up close and personal, the personalities of those two, remarkably similar, the dog and Josh Naylor, in a good way. I can see why he relates to that. I do.
I feel like Tucker's got a lot more outward energy in general than Naylor will display. Naylor, you got to pick your spots. Like, he'll show it, but it's got to be something really, really grand that happens in real time, where Tucker usually has it, but it's more a general aura and not always reciprocated towards specific individuals.
Dogs in general have more energy than humans. So I would grade that on a curve. I would say the comparison for me is neither has a lot to say to the general public, but the things they really like, they very much appreciate. Josh Naylor, for example, very much likes his teammates, very much likes Tucker the dog, very much likes his family, and he's not hesitant to say those things out loud. It was a very common theme in his press conference today. Tucker the dog ignores me, ignores Lyle. Lyle likes that a lot. Favorite attribute he's ever found about any dog ever. And I guess most of the other media members who aren't there all the time, he just goes, meh. But Rick Riz, Shannon Dreyer, Tucker's the biggest fan of all time. So you can draw some similarities there.
If he gets to know somebody, he'll attach to him. That's what you mean.
Yeah. Mostly for treats, but...
Well, I was going to say, that's kind of Tucker's key. Even with the people he knows better, if you're not giving him snacks, he kind of just gives you the cold shoulder.
The snack Josh Naylor wanted was $95.5 million over 5 years.
92.5, yeah.
92.5, yeah. Everyone has different things that gets them there, but for the Mariners, they offered a big fat snack to Josh Naylor, and he said yes. And we got the number, 92.5, which was good. Another big takeaway. This came from Jeff Passan this morning. The team the Mariners were bidding against, or one of the teams the Mariners were bidding against in the sweepstakes for Josh Naylor, it's not the Mets. It's not the Red Sox, who DFA'd their first baseman this morning in Nathaniel Lowe. It's not the Yankees. It's the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Yeah, dude, what the fuck?
The Pirates' record for contract they've ever given out was a 3-year, $39 million deal to Francisco Liriano. In Passan's own words, they were ready to more than double that contract offer to sign Josh Naylor.
And isn't the most recent multi-year deal they've given out John Jaso? Do I have that right? Or is it Liriano?
Is that it? Multi-year deal.
Yeah, sorry. Multi-year deal they've given a free agent. The most recent one, I think, is a 2-year deal for John Jaso, which was like $6 million, which is insane. That's insane. Again, I know it has not been easy in Mariners land in terms of off seasons the last few years and a lot of points. But my God, 2 years for $6 million? At least they extended Luis Castillo. At least they signed Robbie Ray at one point.
Oh, no, dog. No, that's not it.
It's not Jaso?
You're never going to guess who it is.
All right, then why don't you just tell the people?
I want you to give me your favorite random pirate to guess who this is.
Favorite random pirate? I don't know if this is that random, but how about Jordy Mercer?
Not Jordy Mercer. Ivan Nova got a 3-year deal for $26 million. That was the last multi-year deal they gave out.
Just over $8 million a year. Dude, who lets Bob Nutting own a team? I know the answer was Bob Nutting himself because he bought it, but my God.
Bob Nutting definitely had the playoffs on and watched Josh Naylor. Because otherwise, it doesn't make any sense why the Pirates are up there bidding with the Mariners. Like, this is not what they do.
No. For those who don't know, Bob Nutting is the owner of the Pittsburgh Pirates and may be, no exaggeration, the worst to ever do it. Him and John Fisher just trade punches all the time for that title.
Do you think this is a signal that teams are going to spend more this offseason? I thought we were going to get the opposite sentiment that everyone was going to be clutching their pocketbooks for next year when they could potentially miss games. But if the Pirates are ready to hand out over $80 million for Josh Naylor, does that mean that teams are going to start spending?
It's tough to know. Apparently the Pirates are also interested in Kyle Schwarber, which I'm sure is not going to happen, but they're interested.
The ultimate PR case of all time. Yeah, we're interested in everybody. We're willing to spend. We're not actually going to spend, but we're interested in spending.
Yeah, honestly, there's a part of me that thinks that's what's happening, is they're finding the people in the media that they can leak stuff like this to, that'll report it to try to make it seem like they care, but then they don't.
Or is it the situation where the PA files a grievance against them for not spending?
They've got to be getting close to that point, right? Because the PA filed a grievance against the A's last year, and that's how they ended up signing Luis Severino and gave Brent Rooker his extension and handed out a couple other contracts. I honestly wonder if that's what's happening here. Problem with the Pirates is you can't give out in-house extensions to some of the guys you'll want to, because Paul Skeens ain't taking some horse shit extension that you're going to try and offer him for like barely above the money you'd make in arbitration.
And the Pirates don't have any other good players.
Yeah. I mean, Paul Skeens is on pace to get $400 million when he's a free agent. And if inflation's up by then, it might be $500,000. So
that was some news today.
Sorry. $500 million. My bad.
$500 million. That was some news today, though. That caught me off. Do you think Josh Naylor talked to them?
I mean, if you want to get back to words and quotes he used in his own press conference, he said one of the only things I care about, aside from obviously family, friends, etc., is winning baseball games. If he cares about winning baseball games, no, he's not going to the Pittsburgh fucking Pirates.
It didn't sound like there was, like, for as much bidding as there was probably a decent amount of bidding for Josh Naylor, but it wasn't, I wouldn't say in true free agent fashion, because he acknowledged, like, there is a positive to sometimes letting your market play out and have the teams truly throw everything they have at you to try and sign you. And he didn't even allow that to happen. And he acknowledged that straight up front. He said, once we hit free agency, we kind of had an idea of where we wanted to go. And it sounded like both from the Mariners side and from the Naylor side, they both communicated to each other, this is what we want. And it ends up working out great. What Naylor wanted to see was, are the Mariners serious? Are they going to pony up? Now you go back to the Mariners side of this, where you have Jerry Dipoto saying something we've been wanting him to say for like 10 years, where he says, to me, it would have been a negligence if we went into the offseason and the first thing we did was let Josh walk away because of, some business decision. Well, finally.
All right, let me preface this. Jerry and Justin do not get to control the budget. So when they're talking about business decisions, they can spend the money they're allotted. But in most years, as we certainly highlighted last year, there was limited allocations that they could use. Mm-hmm. So let's put it like this. When I hear business decisions, I say to the Mariners, and really this is punching up above their weight class and to, well, you know who it goes to. Where has this mindset been for 10 years since First Avenue Entertainment, the Mariners' current ownership, took over the team? Like, obviously better late than never, and we're in present day, and we should probably just focus on the present. But seriously, where has this been for 10 years? Where was this in 2018 when you decided all you needed to do at the deadline was add Cameron Maven, Zach Duke, and Adam Warren and then miss the playoffs?
Solely because they were instructed not to spend much more money.
Yes, and honestly, we were just talking about this pre-recording. I'll say it right here. I honestly wonder, if you look at what the Mariners have done the last 5 years, which has not been perfect, but it's certainly better than what they can say in the 2010s, I honestly wonder how much changed once Kevin Mather left the org, or was forced out for every good reason. Feels like since then, as many problems as people have had at times with John Stanton, with Chris Larson, with people in this ownership group, I mean, it feels like a lot changed once Kevin Mather was gone. And you made this point. He was the co-president of baseball and business operations, so he got to make decisions on both sides of it.
He was team president, so he was Jerry's boss.
Right.
Him and Justin were still in the organization in their roles, but Kevin Mather was team president. So if I remember correctly, so Mather resigns, Jerry gets elevated to president of baseball operations, and then they go outside the org and they hire Katie Griggs, who was technically his replacement, but she only did it on the business side.
Well, right. Well, two things with that. I don't think Jerry immediately got the elevation. I think it was after some time. It was either after 21 or maybe 22 he got the elevation. It wasn't right away. But to the second point, Kevin Martinez is the president of the team now, but he's not, as far as I know and understand, he's not making baseball decisions.
Because they split that role.
Right.
But before, I believe Kevin was president. He was team president, so he was president of both.
Now you're talking about Kevin Mather, yeah.
Yes. Jerry DiPoto was not... He's technically team president, but his more well-known title is president of baseball operations.
Right.
While Kevin Martinez is president of business operations. So they split the role up a little bit. But Kevin Mather, who did have some ownership equity, too, in the team, made being team president, team president.
I'm not crazy, though, right? It honestly feels like mindset's changed a little bit in the last 5 years, actually, if not a lot, since he's been gone.
Do you just want to talk about the last words he said officially as a member of the Mariners organization while he was employed, where he was openly bragging about service time manipulation and making fun of accents and speaking English? Yeah, I think things have gotten better.
Yeah, I think things have gotten better. Where he said he would have gone out and played left field before Jared Kelenic did to start 21.
Yes. No wonder things got better.
Yeah. Anyway, fast forward to now. Thank goodness, after all these years, how we talked about for 10 years, where has this mindset been? Now we're in present day, and in present day, they seem to have altered some of their operating process, which clearly with somebody like Josh Naylor, who they liked and know how valuable he was to the team, took it upon themselves to say, yeah, let's not mess around here. Let's just get this done, get Josh back in the fold, and then we can focus on the rest of our offseason, kind of like we talked about.
I think it's entirely possible that the people up top running the budget were able to see what the result of the process was, aggressively adding at the deadline, adding payroll when you needed to, and playing a shit ton of home playoff games, and what that did. And that's, for what I see right now of how they're operating, it seems like it reflected positively on them, which is very good. Where they say, this does seem worth it to get back to this point and spending the dollars. And that's, I can't say exactly how many dollars they made off of this, but they did deem that worth it, it feels like. And they did deem Josh Naylor worth it as well. And on top of that, they said in this press conference they are aiming to try and bring back both Jorge Polanco and Eugenio Suarez. I don't know how much they're willing to spend on those two, but that's two more free agents they're willing to spend, which, by the way, at least one of those two, if you're going to sign them, is going to break Mitch Garver's contract as well for a record, now second most money they've ever given out.
To a free agent position player.
A free agent position player. Like, that's not crazy. I think they saw a lot of things they liked with the results of last season and are just trying to replicate that, which is great. Just wish it would have happened earlier, but better late than never.
Liked a lot of the results is your quote there. You mean investing into a winning baseball team?
And winning.
Yeah. Well,
winning.
Yeah.
It comes back to winning.
But you have to invest in said baseball team to get a winning baseball team, and they finally did that.
Step number 1, organize a core. Step number 2, add to the core when you need to. Step number 3, make the playoffs. Step number 4, win in the playoffs. And that's what they did.
Yeah.
And it worked.
And you invested in your roster, which thank goodness they did, and thank goodness they're doing again. Because, by the way, this is this is part of the promise they made to Cal Raleigh when Cal inked that deal last year and signed his extension. There was that story that came out that at spring training he spent 2 to 3 hours talking up in the front office, like up in one of the suites with Jerry and with Justin about all these different things, including Cal saying, if I'm going to ink my name to this franchise long-term and be here long-term, I need to know that everybody is committed to winning baseball games. Otherwise, it's going to be hard for me to do that. And he wanted to make sure part of that was, keeping a core together, making sure that the farm system was good, which both of those things were happening. But he wanted to also make sure that when needed, they were going to add from outside the organization. And I would bet you Cal Raleigh is a pretty happy camper seeing Josh Naylor being attached to this team for 5 more years, because this is part of what the Mariners said they were going to do, especially to Cal Raleigh, and they did it.
But it's one thing to make those promises to Cal to get him to sign the extension. It's another thing to follow through on those promises.
Right.
They could have just added at the deadline last season for 1 year and then not signed him this offseason. They could have done that. And they would have kept the payroll a little bit below where it was last year. Maybe they, at the end of the year, could get up to where it was at the end of the year. But they wouldn't have to do that. Cal's under contract now.
Mm-hmm.
Like he is. And they're holding to their word on that, which is great. And it helps to build upon that point there. Both what they've done for Cal and what Josh Naylor says in his press conference today, both very much help the Mariners when it comes to player perception. The last 2 offseasons we've talked about, the perception of the Mariners from an agency perspective and a player perspective was not great. Ryan Divish had talked about it a ton. You just look at the players they've gotten there and the comments that they've said after leaving the Mariners. Think of the 2 most high-profile guy, or honestly, 3 high-profile guys after they had left. First one, Eugenio Suarez, very good with the Mariners. They trade him away to save money. Does that look good for players? No. I'll throw Robbie Ray in there, number 4. Why did Robbie Ray leave? They wanted to save money. Veteran player, paid a lot of money. Teoscar Hernandez, I can't see the ball. Batter's eye's crooked. Jesse Winker, like all-star before he got to Seattle. He left because he just didn't mesh in that clubhouse. How does that signal to a free agent or someone looking to sign an extension to Seattle, hey, this is somewhere where people want to play?
Yeah.
Does it?
Not really.
No. But when Josh Naylor comes out and says, I literally love everything about this place. I love hitting in this ballpark. I love the city. I love my teammates. This organization has treated me incredibly well. They stepped up and handed me a contract that was above and beyond what I expected. So I decided to sign here, and they mean business. That is an endorsement. At K-Tuck, an endorsement.
Somebody get him on the line. Actually, just get him on this podcast, and we'll sales pitch him. I guarantee if you get K-Tuck on this podcast and get Kyle Tucker on here, and you get him 10 minutes with us, we'll give him our sales pitch, we'll present our PowerPoint, and we'll let him go on his way. But I will be confident that in those 10 minutes of time, there's no way we wouldn't have persuaded him to sign with the Mariners. And Josh Naylor and Cal Raleigh, too. Those guys can get a piece of they can get a piece of the credit, too. But I will say about Josh Naylor, it was interesting to hear him talk about in his press conference today, him acknowledging the importance of getting the deal done early also. Not just for him and his family, but he mentioned how, hey, with this now done, hopefully now this sets everybody up to go make more moves this winter to keep improving the team. And he said, look, I like where the team's at now. I know this team's really good, but hopefully now with this done, it gives them the space and it gives them the time to go add more. So it's clearly, like, I don't think Naylor's saying that if he thought it was going to blindside the front office. I'm sure one of the things that Naylor asked about before he signed is, hey, is it going to be just me, or are we going to try to add around me and bring a lot of the group back or add some additional talent? And I'm sure what the front office told him was, yeah, we're trying to do a lot this winter.
When we say this is a perfect deal, after you finished saying that, when we say this is a perfect deal, that's why this is a perfect deal. Perfect.
Yeah.
And both sides are getting exactly what they want, and it sets the Mariners up in a great position for the rest of the offseason. And that is all you can ask for, really.
Yeah. I guess what
if ownership decides, now that this deal is signed and they feel confident with Josh Naylor there, that they're willing to increase the budget? What if?
Great.
Like, your baseball ops people just pulled off a deal 10 days into free agency for the largest free agent contract to a hitter you've ever given out. 10 days. Let them cook. Seriously, let them cook.
Yes. Man, I will say, too, that to the point we talked about Monday about his perception changing, I'll say the same thing we just said the other day. You got to do more. You can't have one or two bright spots over the course of 10 years that have been very tough at times in terms of perception, in terms of action, and just say everything's fixed. But are they on the right track? Are they headed in the right direction? Of course. This is a massive step. They got this done. It's a player that fits. You know it's a player that's beloved. You know it's a player that's going to be productive. He's not even 30 years old. And hopefully this allows you to do more and continue to change the narrative, because they can continue to do that. They are doing everything right as of the last, we'll call it 6 months, since the trade deadline. I guess that's more like 4 or 5 months. But point being, yeah.
They want to...
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I was about to transition us unless you had something else.
The one thing I saw people talking about was the fact that Josh Naylor has a full no-trade clause in this deal, which I'm going to be honest about two things. Number one, for anybody that gives skepticism to, from the Josh Naylor perspective, how could you not want that? You've been traded 4 times in your career, once as a prospect, once because the Guardians weren't going to spend any money and pay you, once because the Diamondbacks were uncompetitive, and he was traded early on when he was with the Padres in a deal with the Marlins during the COVID year. So yeah, he's been traded a lot. He probably wants some stability. And for any fan or any person out there that might worry about the idea of a no-trade clause and him having leverage in potential trades down the road, let me tell you what. After 7 years of hearing the narrative about how they've never signed a player to a greater deal than Nori Aoki's $5.5 million over 1 year, Josh Naylor can demand a house in the Hamptons that's complimentary on the Mariners for all I care, and the Mariners should sign up for that. You got to get players.
You shouldn't want to trade him either.
No.
If he's good, he should just stay in Seattle for all 5 of those years.
Right, and in those 5 years, the Mariners should not lose their competitive window, and if they do, that's a problem in its own right. So yes, for all I care, Josh Naylor can demand a house in the Hamptons as part of his contract, and the Mariners should say, yeah, we'll give it to you. Because you can't keep playing the books in free agency. That's how you lose out on guys. You got to get guys in the door and sometimes make some sacrifices, like potentially, we don't know if it's a sacrifice or not, but like potentially adding this extra year like they did to the contract, the 5th year. Get guys in the door. Otherwise, you're not going to get them at all.
In Jerry's own words, not letting guys walk away because of business decisions, what they deem a good or bad business decision. They just want to get a deal done. And Josh Naylor is agreed, and that's exactly what this is.
Yeah.
Speaking of potentially good business decisions, we have someone we need to discuss. We were going to talk about him on Monday before Josh Naylor signed. We'll talk about him now, but before we get to that, Lyle, you want to read an ad?
Yeah. How about our friends over at Pagach's Pub 85? You guys hear us talk about them all the time, for good reason. It's this awesome neighborhood bar. It's over in Kirkland. There's 20 TVs in the place, so you're perfectly set up to go watch a bunch of games if you head over there. There's also great food. There's games like pool and darts. It's a really cool spot to hang out with your friends. And if you go during happy hour, well, drinks are $3 and $4 from 2 to 6 p.m. on Monday through Friday. Those are their happy hour deals, Monday through Friday, 2 to 6 p.m., which are $3 and $4 drinks. It's an awesome spot that's over at Pagach's Pub 85 in Kirkland.
One of the biggest swings the Mariners could make this offseason is calling up the Arizona Diamondbacks and trading for Ketel Marte. If you want to swing for the fences, now that you have Josh Naylor, you can swing and hit a home run if you go out and trade for Ketel Marte. He's publicly available. The Diamondbacks have some budgetary concerns. They need to add pitchers. Their team right now is a bit unbalanced, and you could help balance them out by trading for Ketel. How does this sound to you?
Sounds like we should turn on some Cher. What's the song? I want you back. I want you back. I want you back. You know that song? You know what I'm talking about?
You'd have to play it for me.
You'd probably know it. I mean, I didn't do a good
Your
job.
musical tunes are not.
No, I actually have decent musical tunes. I just wasn't doing it right there. I was just trying to more say the words than actually sing the words. So, I don't know. Like, it's a decently famous song, but you get the premise. Saying the song's called "I Want You Back." That's what it sounds like to me. Is the idea of trading for the best second baseman in baseball with 5 to 6 years of club control still remaining on his deal. I'm not saying there's not concerns. He's already in his 30s. But to upgrade there and to get that guy in the fold, who, by the way, has been a top 10 hitter in baseball, and that's not an exaggeration, each of the last 2 years by WRC+, that's what you'd be getting. Full stop. Top 10 hitter in Major League Baseball.
And over the last 5 years among second baseman, he is 43% better offensively by WRC+ than the next best second baseman, or than an average second baseman. So the case to be made to trade for him is pretty easy from a baseball perspective. There's some non-baseball perspectives we can talk about here in a little bit. But just the baseball version of Ketel, the fact that he switch hits, he hits for power, he hits for average, he doubles, he's produced multiple top, like many big years in his career, including this past season. It's a pretty easy case. He was a Mariner before. He was the first, probably, guy that got away for Jerry Dipoto. And now would be a time to try and fix that. And let me say that before you say whatever you're about to say. One of the biggest selling points of this, because even with Josh Naylor signed, budget's still a concern for the Mariners. They do not have unlimited budget. The contract that Ketel Marte is on right now is 6 years for $116 million. Or at least that's what's left. He will make... His two most expensive years are $22 million in 2029 and 2030, right at the end of his contract. The AAV of that deal is about what Josh Naylor is getting paid right now. For a top 10 hitter in baseball, you're not going to find much better bang for your buck than that.
No, of course not. And especially at that position where offense comes at such a premium at second base these days. We always talk about it, especially with Jose Altuve past his prime now and moving to left field. We always say, hey, who's the best second in baseball, or who's the best second baseman in baseball when you get past Ketel Marte? We say, well, I feel like there's not a clear-cut answer because it is a offensive position that just does not produce stars at a high rate these days. The one absolute star that you get year in and year out, Ketel freaking Marte. And it's funny, I've heard before that he actually loosened up and stopped pressing so much and stressing as much once he got paid. He's one of those guys that once that happened, he was able to relax more rather than guys feeling like they have to live up to the contract. So for Ketel, who's in his 30s, he already has his contract. He doesn't have to play super tight and super aggressive and press, so to speak. He's just playing free, and I think that's what's helped him a lot of the last few years.
He's not a Josh Naylor walk-year type of guy.
No. And by the way, let me say, to defend the trade they made back after 2016, that was still a really good trade on the Mariners.
It was.
And in a lot of years, actually in a lot of ways, they still won that trade because you got 2 All-Star years of Segura, you got Mitch Haniger in Seattle, who was obviously awesome, and then you flipped Segura for J.P. Crawford. So was Ketel Marte the best player traded in that deal? Well, yeah, of course. But I think war-wise, the Mariners still come out on top of that deal. So I don't begrudge them for making that trade. Would I also still like Ketel Marte back at this point? Yeah.
I don't think they envisioned Ketel Marte being this.
Well, no.
Otherwise, he wouldn't have been traded.
I was going to say, the dude could barely put the ball over the wall when he was in Seattle.
He couldn't put the ball over the wall. He couldn't hit the ball to the warning track.
No, I mean, I think he had 1 homer in the big leagues with the Mariners. And I remember it. I want to say it was against the Rays. Remember back with the Mariners when he was up and he was so young, 2021. He had that insanely flat swing. It just didn't scream power at all. He's a different guy now.
Why do the Diamondbacks want to trade him? Well, there's a few reasons. Let's start with the baseball reasons for this. So the Diamondbacks last year, when they went out and they signed Corbin Burns, they pushed their chips in to try and win this past season. Obviously did not work out. They ended up running a near record payroll of about $195 million. And they are going to scale back that payroll. Right now, it starts at $145 million before they've signed a single person for the 2026 season. They have a lot of young players on the roster that they want to give playing time to, especially on the infield. You have Jordan Lawler and you have Geraldo Perdomo, up the middle, or the two guys you want to sort of thrive for your future. You have Corbin Carroll in the outfield as well. Like, there are some guys there that the Diamondbacks have on that they've paid. So did they pay Perdomo?
Not yet, right?
Corbin has been paid. That I know.
Yeah.
They paid Corbin. So Corbin's the big contract they've given out.
You know what? Let me eat those words. Yes, they did. Perdomo's on a 4-year, $45 million contract extension that starts this year in 26.
Eventually they'll have to pay him again, but not anytime soon. The problem with the Diamondbacks had is they don't have pitching. Zach Gallen is a free agent. Merrill Kelly is a free agent. Corbin Burns is hurt. That's 3 starters from their rotation that started this past year, gone. And the Jordan Montgomery experience absolutely blew up in their face. So the Diamondbacks, when it comes to starting pitching, are struggling. Starting pitching and bullpen. They do not have everything squared away. That's why I think this makes a lot of sense for these two teams to talk, because not only do the Mariners have prospects to offer for Ketel Marte, but at the Diamondbacks, they say for 6 years of Ketel Marte, we need big league players. The Mariners have starting pitching they can offer at the big league level.
You're also forgetting one more pitcher in this Diamondbacks fold. Erod. Eduardo Rodriguez, they give a lot of money to, who also totally blew up in their face. I mean, it's amazing. For as much as they have tried to invest in their rotation, it hasn't worked. You look at the Diamondbacks going into next year, you'll have Ryan Nelson, and he'll probably start opening day because he had a really good year last year. And you have Brandon Pfaadt, who didn't pitch that well this year. But past them, there's just a lot of question marks, especially with Corbin Burns' injury, and he may not pitch in 2026. This is probably part of the reason they wanted our guy BG and Brandon Garcia's. They probably think he's going to start next year, which would make sense. They need pitchers, and obviously BG can still start. But they need more arms. There's no doubt they need more arms.
They could very easily call up the Mariners. They could ask for Kate Anderson. They could ask for Ryan Sloan. They could ask for Jurangelo Cijntje. What if the Mariners want to separate themselves from everyone else? Like all the other teams in baseball, they have some starting pitching prospects too, right? Some of them have starting pitching prospects that are very close to the big leagues. What if the Mariners offer Bryce Miller in this?
I mean, sure the Diamondbacks won't hang up the phone if they did that. I'm sure they'd be listening. I'm sure they think it would really help. But is it him alone? Is that all they want?
You'd offer some other pieces, but you're making the Diamondbacks' life very easy with this because you're taking almost $120 million over the next 6 years off their payroll, and you're giving them a starter with 4 years of control left. Right now, this year, I believe, making league minimum.
Well, here's the other part of this. If the Mariners are taking on the whole contract, which you would assume they would, or any team would that trades for Ketel Marte, because it's not a gargantuan contract, does it cost you Bryce Miller?
Maybe not. In that case, you give up a prospect.
Right.
But if that's the cost for 6 years of Ketel at a below market rate, then maybe that is the cost that gets the deal done. We haven't seen much of this before, right? Where a player is still in his prime offensively, but is also over the age of 30 and is locked up for at least 6 more years.
Well, technically it's 5, so he's got 5 more years on the deal,
Okay.
and then there's a player option for about $11.5 million in 2031 when he'd be 37.
Which he would almost certainly take, unless he's somehow still maxing out at 37 years old.
Right. He's probably not getting $11.5 million in free agency at 37.
Like, this is a unique, situation.
Very.
So maybe it would take one of your starters.
I still have a hard time believing that if you're going to eat that much money. Look, it's not like you're taking on a Trey Turner contract, but it is something. I just think, I don't know. I think it's hard if you were going to ask the Mariners to take on half this deal and you wanted Bryce Miller back or a current starter, sure, that's a different story. And again, for anybody that's already in the comments screaming, no, don't trade Bryce Miller, we're not advocating for this either. And there's more to this conversation around Ketel Marte that we're going to get into, which circles back to a potential reason for why they would not do this. But I feel like for the Diamondbacks to get one of the young 4 pitchers in the Mariners rotation, you can't ask the Mariners to eat the whole contract. Do I know that for sure? No, because to your point, you don't see this a lot. This is a unique situation. I would still assume that would not be the price if the Mariners are eating all the money.
What if they gave up George Kirby, less control, more money going back to the Diamondbacks because they have to pay him more?
That's possible. And again, he feels the least likely of this bunch, of those 4 guys, of Logan, Miller, Wu, Kirby, to sign a long-term extension. So yeah, I mean, that one might match up a little bit better because you're right. It is more money. It is less control. And if you're assuming the Mariners are still taking all of Ketel's contract, yeah, I would say that one could match up a little bit better, but that's still a lot.
What would you feel comfortable giving up?
I mean, this is where it gets hard because to trade for a Ketel Marte, maybe you do have to get uncomfortable. I would be surprised if you had to trade out of your big league rotation. But
are you comfortable trading a starter if they have to eat the whole contract?
Just from a baseball perspective?
Yeah. You don't have to pick which one. Are you comfortable trading a big league starter?
I mean, obviously I want to just sit here and have all our faith in our guy Logan Evans, which if you trade a starter, he's going to be slotted into the rotation and get his chance to thrive, which would be awesome. But if you're looking at this a little more from a 3,000-foot lens and you're looking at it from more of a general fan's perspective, I'm honestly sitting here thinking because I'm trying to decide.
Are you going to ask me if this makes the Mariners better? If you're trading a starter?
I you know what? Let me say this. I think my hesitation in the answer gives everybody the answer they're looking for. And to answer your question, sitting here and having to think about it this much probably means you are uncomfortable. And that might be the situation the Mariners have to get into to trade for a Ketel Marte, is maybe you do have to get uncomfortable. What I would feel better about, yeah, is certainly if it just costed prospects. And it can be good prospects. But I would feel a lot better doing that.
If they trade for Ketel Marte, I would imagine they would trade Castillo too. Not in this deal, but to give themselves some flexibility, they would maybe.
Well, but
or maybe they would keep Castillo if they had to trade a big league starter because you don't want to dish 2 starters out of your rotation for one player.
I was gonna say if you have to trade Castillo in order to get Ketel and it would cost you a starter in the Ketel Marte trade, no, I don't think they're trading a starter. Because you can't take 2 guys out of your rotation. I mean, just look at what happened this past year, right? In 25. What's the old saying? You have pitching until you don't. We saw the Mariners get very banged up all year. Bryce Miller, banged up. George Kirby, banged up. Logan Gilbert, banged up. If you want to even dive deeper into the rotation, like Logan Evans, for example. He was on the IL a lot of the second half of the year. They had a lot of injuries. So I think if you were going to have to trade a starter, you would have to say no. If it involved trading Castillo too. If you were going to trade a starter to get Ketel Marte, I think you have to keep Luis.
Well, as they are right now, if they were to trade for Ketel and they were to add him on, they would have close to a record payroll. It would be getting up there. They would be at, as of this year, I think they would be close to $170 million if they don't change anything right now and they trade for Ketel Marte. So it'd be almost $170 million. You would solve second base. There would be a question mark of what to do with Cole Young. That's another thing we can talk about here. Third base would still be a question. Everywhere else, for the most part, you would feel good. Your bullpen would still be a little thin. That's where you would be at.
I was going to say, so now that you bring up Cole Young, and this from a personal standpoint sucks to say too, because we really like Cole, and he's another friend of the pod. But I don't know how you get through this Ketel Marte trade without having to give up Cole Young, because the Diamondbacks would say, well, we need a second baseman, and you've got a young second baseman that's got a lot of promise, that's 22 years old, it was a top 100 prospect. I feel like that would be a part of the deal.
And you'd probably do it.
You'd probably do it. I'm just saying, in terms of figuring out the Cole Young factor, I'm guessing that's what would happen if you were going to trade for Ketel.
Because he wouldn't have a fit left on the Mariners.
No, he pretty much needs to play second base. Even in Arizona, that'd probably be the case with Perdomo there. He probably wouldn't move back to short. He'd probably play second.
And Lawler would play third.
Right. Exactly.
So that's where it would be at. You would have to trade. So if you're willing to trade for Ketel Marte, Lyle and I are guesstimating you would need to trade two of, at this point, a starter out of your rotation, Kirby or Miller, one of your top pitching prospects, and Cole Young.
I don't think it's all together. That's what it costs. I think it's either or. I think either
it's
you
not
are
only going to take one of the three. It's
not
probably
one of the three. What I'm saying is it either costs a big league starter or a few prospects. I don't think you're giving up Bryce Miller and Gerangelo and Cole Young. That feels like too much to take on all Ketel's money.
Let me reword this then. It will either cost a big league starter or it will cost a prospect in Cole Young.
That makes a lot more sense. Yes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So that leaves you with questions at DH. It leaves you with questions in the bullpen. But you also add a top 10 hitter to your lineup.
And if you add Jorge Polanco there, then your then your payroll's over $180 million. And now we're in uncharted territory.
That doesn't leave them a ton of room to do much at the deadline either, which seems to be a piece of the puzzle that they've really unlocked the last few years. Is for the groundwork they've already done this offseason with Naylor and will probably continue to do with other guys they can bring in, they do seem to really like to leave some wiggle room for midseason when they can add at the deadline. So they can assess, they can have 4 months or so. They say, hey, what do we need in terms of reinforcements in the final stretch? And they go out and get it, like they've done the last few years. So, look, to bring back Polo and to trade for Ketel and to sign Josh Naylor would be amazing. But then you probably can't expect to do much at the deadline.
I wonder if his clubhouse thing will bring the price down at all. I think that this is... Let's discuss this for a little bit. So Ketel Marte had some documented clubhouse issues regarding taking days off without proper notice, right? He didn't give as much heads up to the Diamondbacks before he would take a day off, and it would leave the Diamondbacks in a worse off spot. Listen to this from Mike Hazen. Mike Hazen said this on August 20th regarding the Ketel Marte situation. We're not blind to having an imperfect clubhouse and imperfect roster. They're not even denying it. They're saying, yeah, the clubhouse is not perfect with Ketel Marte, and Ketel is one of the reasons. One thing I would say why it would not be as big of an issue in Seattle, I don't think, while he might be the oldest player on the roster, the senior on the roster, I think he's older than Jorge Polanco if he resigns. He would not be the alpha on the roster. Like, he's the alpha in Arizona.
Is he?
Yes.
Or is it Corbin?
He's 10 years older than Corbin, almost. 7.
If you mean from who people look up to, sure. But if you're talking about the best player, I mean, it's close. It's really close.
I'm not referring to best player. Because you could argue he'd be the best player on the Mariners. Right?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd put him above what Cal did this year, but sure, you can argue that.
You can argue top 10 hitter in baseball.
For 2 years, yeah, for 2 years in a row.
Yeah. But like alpha, no, Cal's the alpha.
Right.
You don't need to. Ketel Marte could be on the Mariners tomorrow, and I'd say, yeah, Cal's the leader here. Cal's in charge.
Yeah,
and even if you want to look at people on Spanish speakers in terms of guys in charge on the roster, I mean, you have Julio. But you also have guys like Luis Castillo and Randy. Right. Like, you have established vets up and down this roster.
Yeah, they talked about that with Julio a decent amount this year, that despite being so young, it felt like he took on more of that role this year, like a little bit more of a leadership role, a little bit more of a guy that people turn to a lot more often. So yeah, you've got leaders on this team. And you throw JP into that too, who's another guy that people really rally around in that clubhouse. So Ketel wouldn't have to be that guy. Maybe it seemed like he did have to be in Arizona with a team that was so young, and him being one of the best players, the other best players so much younger than he is. Maybe that would help. Also, if he's just a little bit selfish, it wouldn't really matter, and that could cause riff.
Well, we'll see if the Mariners deem that an issue or the Diamondbacks deem that an issue when they trade him or if they trade him.
Now, I will say to Ketel Marte's point, and to take a little bit more of his side to play devil's advocate here, he claimed the reason he had to do that was his house was broken into, and he needed to go take care of some stuff when he had to leave the team because they had a serious situation happen. But obviously from the Diamondbacks' perspective, they didn't feel like that was... I'm not saying they're denying that his house may or may not have gotten broken into, but it seems like they feel like he did not handle it the right way. They didn't love him being away from the team. Maybe to a lot of people it signaled some acts of selfishness. Yeah, it's not perfect, especially if you were going to trade... I mean, from that perspective, especially if you were going to trade one of the starters to get him and that was the cost. Those starters are glue guys of the team. That whole group is tightly knit. They are watching all of each other's bullpens. You watch them walk everywhere together. They're all friends. They all pick stuff up from one another. Do you risk losing some of that at all? Now, you'd be getting a top 10 hitter in the sport, but do you risk losing some of that? Even if Logan Evans slides right in, and eventually you have Kate Anderson and Durangelo. Is it the same? It's something the Mariners would have to take into consideration.
Mm-hmm. It's a fascinating thing about the offseason. You never know. But from a baseball sense, this does make a lot of sense for the Mariners. It plugs for whatever you would qualify as a hole left. I'd say infield offense is still probably their number one thing they could circle of what they're lacking, and Ketel Marte would make that from a problem to a strength.
And by the way, what trading for Ketel Marte does is still leaves a complete runway for Colt Emerson in 2026. So if you want to dream on another potential star emerging in your season next year, this doesn't block Colt Emerson at all. If they were to re-sign Gino, which Hollander said they're at least entertaining, it makes things a little bit tougher for Colt Emerson in 2026. If you trade for Ketel Marte, you let Ben Williamson start the year at third, and when Colt Emerson's ready, he'd be up. And maybe those two split some time at third base. Eventually Colt, if he hits well, probably takes over the role. That leaves a real gap open too. So it's interesting. I will say, if you want some insight on Ketel Marte, you can probably talk to about it. The guy you just inked to the extension. Ask Josh Naylor what he thought of Ketel Marte when they were in Arizona together. Did he like playing with him? Did he think he was a good clubhouse guy? Because Naylor spent 4 months there. I'm sure he got a sense of it along with all his spring training. You could ask him.
Yeah, you could ask him. Is there anyone else? No, it'd probably just be Josh Naylor.
Right.
Sure. And Josh Naylor is now your future. So you would think you'd want to trust Josh Naylor's opinion on something like this if you were to go ahead and make this deal. I would love to be able to sit here and say that the Mariners could say, oh, we knew Ketel when he was a prospect. Yeah, we have a pretty good idea who he is. That was a long time ago. That was almost 10 years ago now. We're sitting on about 9 years next week of that trade. So a lot changes since then. Ketel's been paid twice. He is a professional now, like a established professional, as opposed to an unproven prospect when they traded him away. So we'll see. But despite all this, I'd be okay with the Mariners doing this. I think this would make the Mariners better. And I think this would hedge against the Mariners rotation potentially having more injuries next year. Where instead of putting these 5 guys out there and you say, all right, we're not trading any of them, they're going to bounce back collectively and all have great years. What if that doesn't happen again? What if you can't replicate 2024? Well, the best way to do that, then to still make your team better, is to go add someone who you know, barring injury, is going to be one of the 15 best hitters in baseball.
Right. Man, it's enticing. Now, again, you'd still have to figure out DH, and that alone might not be a absolute juggernaut of a position offensively. You may be rotating some of your right fielders in there, Robles, Rayleigh, Canzone. But if you have Ketel Marte playing second base, then think about a lineup that could go... Man, it depends on how you'd want to stack it. But if thinking about how Randy got moved down late in the playoffs, if you go Ketel, Cal, Julio, Naylor, Randy, I mean, that's a hell of a top 5.
That is, whew. It's better than the top 5 they had last year.
There's no doubt. And then eventually, if Colt Emerson's here by mid-season, add him somewhere in there too, somewhere in the 7, 8, 9 spot. I know, that is a catalyst Top 5 if you go out and run that out.
And unlike Skubal, Ketel seems pretty publicly available. There's not much of a question of whether or not he's available.
Oh,
it,
yeah. We
it
probably,
seems pretty straightforward that he's available for trade.
Yeah, maybe we buried the narrative on this and should have put it closer to the start of the podcast. But for those who don't know, and a lot of you do, the reports out there are at least 7 teams have inquired on Ketel Marte. And if he was that unavailable, I don't think 7 teams are inquiring. I think those things get shut down pretty quick. But if there's reports leaking out that there's legitimate interest across the league for this guy, feels like the Diamondbacks are shopping him around. And if they are, and you're the Mariners, I think you at least have to entertain the conversation. If you deem that he's not a clubhouse fit, and you don't like what he'd do to that locker room and what he'd do to that group, and you don't think it would ultimately equate to more winning baseball in a good environment, then okay. Maybe you don't want to give up a starting pitcher if that truly ends up being the cost. Okay. But I think you have to pick up the phone and at least entertain it with Mike Hazen and the Diamondbacks, especially because you have a relationship with that team. You've traded with them plenty. You got to at least ask.
Yeah. Fascinating idea, dog. Fascinating idea.
It might not be the last time we come back to it this offseason. It probably won't be. Especially if Ketel's name's floating out there a lot.
And this feels like something that'll catch some more steam at the winter meetings.
Yeah, what can we cook up at the winter meetings when we're there about Ketel?
Maybe we should find Mike Hazen and get him on the pod and ask him some questions.
That'd be great. And meanwhile, recruit K-Tuck while we're there too. Mm-hmm. How about that for a payroll? Naylor, Ketel, K-Tuck. There's your offseason.
Setting records, but also might just win a World Series, so why not?
You know what the captain of this team said. Might as well go win the whole fucking thing.
I agree. And I think this offseason should reflect that.
All right. I think that wraps up this edition of the Marine Layer podcast. You guys know the drill. If you want to listen to the full form podcast, you can do so wherever you get your audio pods. If you're listening, make sure you're doing us that favor and you're downloading these episodes and you're rating and reviewing and leaving a 5-star review when you do. It really does help. If you're watching on YouTube, go leave a comment, and please go hit subscribe on YouTube. That's the best way you can support the channel. You're notified whenever we post new content. So go hit subscribe on YouTube. You can check everything out over at our website too, marinelayerpod.com, where our merch is there, Patreon's there, along with all of our episodes. That's marinelayerpod.com, and then you can find us all across social media at marinelayerpod. That's TJ. I'm Lyle. As always, we thank you guys for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.